Okay, welcome to the webinar. This is a recording of a webinar that we were going to try and do live. I have Stephen Waite with me. He is from the Farm Protectors. They are based in Mildura and in Bendigo. And Steve works with people all over the country, in fact, most of the eastern states and in South Australia, helping farmers to sort out their business structuring, sort out their estate and financial planning and succession planning essentially too, isn't it? Like it's a whole package that you look at, and you meet with them and work fairly extensively with them, and then you send bits and pieces my way to sort out some legal stuff, but essentially you're the one that works on a strategy and helps them implement the strategy.
Yeah, that's correct, Jacqui.
Go ahead.
We work mainly on the strategy and in conjunction with lawyers such as yourself and accountants.
So it's a really good collaborative approach, because most of the time the farmers will have the accountants in place, and sometimes they might have a local solicitor that they use, but sometimes not. But bringing you in certainly adds a whole new element and sorts a whole lot of stuff out that each individual couldn't do themselves. And so you've got 3 case studies to go through with us today.
Yes, I have.
Great. So these are obviously changed the names of people that you've worked with on fairly significant projects over a couple of years each. I think these have gone, haven't they? So,
yes. 2 of them, one's finished, one has still about 2 or 3 years to go before it's fully completed, and the other one we've only just started on, but we're a fair way down the track with the strategy, so we've just got to get it all in place now.
All right, so I suppose each at 3 different stages, and the first one I think we're talking about is the one that's complete, is that right?
That's correct, yes. That's Robert and Linda.
Tell us about them. How were they when they first came to you?
Well, they came, when they first came to me, they were in a bit of a muddle. They didn't really know what to do. They were farming, but not doing it very well, because Robert had some health issues and couldn't keep working. As he described it to me one day, he said, I was shearing a sheep. He said, I got the first one done, and he said, and I caught the second one, and then I caught the second one, and then I caught the second one. And the point that got through to him when I turned to his wife and I said, well, he doesn't listen to what he's saying, does he? That he couldn't actually keep going the way that he was going. So we sat down and had a fair bit of discussion with them and devised a strategy for them to keep their farm, because they were interested in keeping it. They weren't sure whether one of their sons was interested in coming home, but they wanted to maintain the farm if possible and live in the house on the property. They didn't have any intention of moving. And so what we ended up doing there, he did sell off one block, which paid down all his debt. It was the worst of the blocks that he owned, but it paid out all their debt, give him a buffer account, and we leased out the rest of the farm. And that ended up providing them with an income of about $80,000 per annum.
That's nice.
So when that was done, we then sold off all machinery that was no longer required, which then again boosted their savings. So they spent probably 6 months or so trying to get used to the fact that they had this, and Robert was a bit of a worrier. He kept saying, I don't know how I'm going to go with this. I don't know how long the money's going to last. But every time I asked him how much was there, it had gone up by 10,000, not down.
Yeah, it's good.
So once they became comfortable with that and got used to the approach, they started travelling. So they bought themselves a nice little camper van, and they went up all the way to Cape York, and they've still been travelling around still. They're quite comfortable in enjoying their lifestyle. The interesting thing is that the son now does not think he'll go back on the farm. So, but we've still got that land there. We've still got the asset. So a good result all around.
Yeah.
And once that's done, all the wills were set in place because we set the land up into a trust.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just pass to their sons and continue the income for the family after they're gone.
Yeah, which is, so we utilised the family farming transfer. So we got a stamp duty exemption to transfer it into the trust, which was really useful. And that's the benefit, I suppose, of being able to have some exemptions there for farming, because if they weren't farmers, we don't have so much flexibility all the time.
No, the farm succession exemption is a really good one for cases like this, or all these cases actually. It makes the job a lot easier for families to keep the farm in the family if needed.
Yeah,
they don't have to sell. It's not a lot of, and they don't create a lot of debt to the next generation.
And so while you were helping relieve the stress there about his uncertainty about income around his future and what he was going to do with himself, he was also stressed out by being tied up in his dad's estate, wasn't he? Because he still had a third in land that was tied up in his dad's estate, which had to be resolved, and there was problems with his family and all sorts of nonsense, which finally got sorted out as well. So all the stress eventually left.
It did, yes. It took some time to get that done, and he did stress over that a fair bit. But in the long run, it's turned out to be fairly straightforward for them, and they're in a much better, relaxed place. Enjoying travelling.
Did they end up moving as well? I thought that they ended up moving off the old family farm and buying themselves a little house.
They did.
Yeah.
They moved to a just outside a larger rural regional centre with a small hobby farm. So we actually moved the sheep from the farm that they had to the hobby farm where they are now, and they're still playing with his sheep. Give him something to do. It's an interesting.
Pottering around.
Yeah. Goes out and has a look, and as the saying goes out, scratches his belly, has a look, and goes back and forth.
Yeah, and even that was such a huge step. I remember from the very beginning where he was so uncertain about doing anything, all the way to eventually moving into another house where he's so much happier. It's just, it was just such a good outcome, and to see him from being so stressed to just not worried now.
No, he's not worried now. He's actually even gone out of retirement to be semi-retired, and he's doing some machinery driving for roadworks people. So,
oh, you didn't tell me that. Can't help himself.
A little bit of extra cash in his own time. And his health has actually improved because of all this, and he's in a much better place for his mind, but also physically healthier.
Yeah,
and doing very well.
So that's our success story that's ended. So that's a great one. So what was the next one, which I think was a little bit more complex, really, because it's a younger family, isn't it?
Yes, this is a younger family, and it's actually two families that were the start of it. There was two brothers that were farming together, and one had decided to leave the farm, and the other one had to buy him out. It was more of a forced sale in some ways, but it worked out for the best for all in the long run. So we had there's four family members involved in the farm that took it over. There was the two brothers who owned the farm originally, and then the younger brother bought the older one out. But it was so there's two families that are involved in the business. So there's the father and the mother, and the son and the daughter-in-law.
Yeah, so he's setting it up for the next generation as well. And that's, I suppose, I remember that it was a forced removal. We had to initiate proceedings in VCAT, didn't we, to try and force the brother to do something. But he wanted to do it while he was alive, so his son didn't end up with the mess.
Yep, that was correct. That was the whole thing that came out of that it had to be forced in the finish, and we did that through VCAT. a very amicable ending in the
Yeah,
finish.
in the end. Mm-hmm.
For everybody, from a financial perspective and a succession planning setup. So once we got that out of the way, we looked at looking to the future for the son who was involved in it. So the process we took there was to create a property trust for the land to go into. So we used the succession plan and the stamp duty exemption for all that to set up the ownership. And the manner in which we did that was to break it down into the percentages that really already existed. So we go 50% to the brother who took over the farm completely. And his section had no debt attached to it at all, because there was no debt on the farm in the first place anyway. The other 50% we had to borrow for. So we split that section between the four owners. So the father got 25%, the wife got 25%, the son got 25%, and the daughter-in-law got 25%. So it worked out that the father ended up with about 63%, and the other three had about 22 or 3% each. So that's how the ownership was set up, because of the finance. So they owed 50% in the debt. There was two other blocks that were involved as well, which we ended up putting in the super fund.
That's right. I remember it didn't all go into the property trust, did it?
No, it didn't, because that released some cash to give them a bit more than 50% ownership. So it ended up at around about 60-40 debt ratio. So
right. So that was how they pulled cash out of super that was sitting in there.
Yeah, the super fund actually purchased two blocks, which wanted the cash to give them a better debt ratio.
Yeah.
Inside the super fund. And the advantage of that in the long run is that the son and daughter-in-law, Mike and Terry, they've got the succession built in, so they can buy units in that trust off the parents to increase their stake over time, which means that they've borrowed the money, so their name's on the line, and they can purchase more over time, which gives them ownership and more of interest in making sure it works. And he'd been on the farm since he had left school, so there was a little bit of extra there, which we could, use it as foregone wages over time, because there's years when they don't get a good wage being on farms. The boom and bust cycles, as they say.
That's right.
We took that into consideration, and then with that made them 50% owners of the family trust, which runs the business itself. So they not only got part of the property as in this organisation, but they end up with 50% of the business that runs the farm.
Yeah, and so I suppose the entities that we end up in this one were the trust that runs the farm, the property trust, and the super fund.
Yes.
And so the entity that runs the farm and the property trust were at least assured in terms of succession down the line to the son and daughter-in-law that are farming. And then the super fund and any other off-farm assets are the ones that they've got to play around with for the other. Was there other two children or one?
Yes, there was two other children, a daughter and a son. And they've got other funds inside the superannuation fund, and they've also, when they had a successful year, purchased a property in their own name in Mildura, and that the daughter rents that.
Yes, okay, so, a little residential place. And were they planning on potentially moving into that if they moved off the farm?
No, they weren't. That's part of the estate equalisation, so the daughter will eventually end up with that home. As part of that, so she won't get any of the farm as such. She'll get the house and what's left in the cash in the superannuation fund. So they're a very, very successful group of farmers. So there's considerable assets inside the superannuation fund as well as the property that's inside the superannuation fund.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose part of the success on this one, not only because they're successful farmers, but because they started early enough and have enough off-farm assets, because it's hard when you get to a farmer who's in their 60s or 70s and they haven't got any off-farm assets, isn't it? And you have to start thinking, well, how are you going to provide for other children?
Yes, it is. And this is where this family, because they're successful farmers and they plan pretty well, they have been investing on farm in the good years.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore it makes it easier to provide estate equalisation on those accounts. So it points out that the fact of estate equalisation is an extremely important part of doing it all. And the younger you start planning the succession, the better and the easier it is to work out to take care of everyone in the family.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, one of the worst cases we see all the time is that mum and dad have got 4 kids, one's on the farm and 3 are off it, and they want to look after all 4, so they leave the farm a quarter to each with the one that's left on the farm to buy them out.
Yeah.
And the
Not
ultimate
viable.
thing, no bank will lend them that much money.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they don't lend past 50 to 60%, and they've got to buy 75% of it. So
and
then, misses out on his livelihood.
Yeah, yeah. And it also goes back to the point you said before, where the son's working on the farm for less than market wages, and hence the 0.25% doesn't even make up what he's contributed to the estate anyway.
No, that's right. He's the one that misses out. So he not only ends up out of a job, but he ends up out of pocket. And it's not, even though it's seen by the parents to be fair, it's not always fair in the long run.
Yeah, yeah. No, it ends up with fractured families, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And so I suppose that's what we want to try and get across more than anything else, is the earlier the better for farmers.
The earlier you start, the better, the more chance of keeping the family together in a unit at a later date. And there's no stress over who gets what and everything else, because while mum and dad are alive, the ones off the farm will say, oh no, leave the whole farm to Bill, because he's been there since he left school. But then the will gets read out, and the assets are, I didn't know mum and dad had that much money, because land is worth quite a lot of money, because farmers are generally asset rich and cash poor. So they only ever seen them as being cash poor. But when they see that the farm is worth $2 or $3 million sometimes, they want their share, and then it creates it all blows up.
All right, so the third case study, and this is the one that you're just starting, so tell us about this family.
Right, this family, there's 2 brothers who are farming together. Their parents did reasonably well by them. They've purchased a lot of land since, but their parents gave them land in a trust in each of their own names. So good. There's two trusts own the land by the 2 brothers. So it's around about 50-50. And they've each purchased property that's kept it at around about 50-50 over a period of time.
Right.
And the farm business is operated under a partnership. It's not in a trust or a company either. It's just a partnership. So the eldest one is James and the youngest one is Scott. So James has no children and Scott has 2, a girl and a boy.
Yeah.
And that's Andrea and Jack. Now, Jack's still at school. He's in the final years of school and he wants to come home and work on the farm.
Okay.
Andrea has commenced an occupation in the armed forces, but also wants to return to the farm when she's completed her term. And that's where they've got together and decided to create this succession plan. So the strategy we worked on there, after a fairly in-depth and many discussions with both sides, is that James has the idea that eventually his part of the farm will end up with the 2 children.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Lucky he doesn't have his own children.
It is lucky he doesn't have his own children. So he's decided to leave the farm to the 2 children of Scott, who's the younger person. But James is thinking ahead as well. So this is where they're fairly good. And he's about 5 or 6 years away from retirement age. So he's looking to get a pension or a part pension at that time.
Ah, right. Okay. In 5 years' time, that's the magic number, isn't it?
That's the magic number. Yeah, we've got to wait 5 years if he gifts any business away. So initially, the first step we're going to take is to retire him from his trust as the appointor and a director, and his brother will take that over. His brother, and then we're redoing all the wills. So, but James also wants the right to live in the farm. Even though he wants to still live in the farm until such time as they either go to a nursing home or they can't stay out on the farm and have got to move into a retirement village or purchase a house in a town somewhere for them. And the interesting thing is that the 2 children, Andrea is interested in running stock, such as sheep and cattle, whereas Jack is more interested in grain farming. And so how we're trying to set this up is to set the land up so that one of the trusts has all the property that's suitable for carrying stock, and the other one is more suitable for grain.
Great. And I suppose it's not structured that way at the moment, so there's got to be some land movement.
Yes, there does have to be a little bit of land movement, not a lot though. Okay. There's only one block goes from the younger brother, Scott, into James's trust. We can build that out by putting one of James's blocks into Scott's trust, which is more suitable for grain. So we've got that designed out to create those 2 trusts as such, with the brother managing both of them in the short term with a right to live. And probably he will get some support. Well, he will get some support over the next 5 or 6 years off the farm, because they're still working together. So and they work together very well. So that's we're going to do shift transfer of the land into the appropriate land into the appropriate trusts. And there is 2 blocks that will have to wait some time because they don't meet the rules for capital gains tax. So
for retirement.
Yep, they haven't been operating for 15 years, so we can't access the retirement rollover thing. So, and then we redo the wills for both of them, which is where, with the transfer of the land and the wills, where you come into the picture. So we transfer it to the younger son, and then we do the will so that it goes to the children, and each of the trusts go one each way to the children.
Yeah, so the appointor roles in the wills will have to nominate which one gets what role.
That's good. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, so that's the path we've taken there. So it's working out really well. Everybody gets on well together. James's wife, because they haven't had children, she's to be looked after in the whole thing too. So if he goes first, she still gets the right to live in the house block.
Yeah, okay. And James doesn't have all his wealth tied up in the trusts either, does he? So he's got some other off-farm assets.
Yes, James has quite a bit of off-farm assets to create an income stream, and he's got enough there and his wife has a fair amount of investments in her name as well. So the 2 of them will be able to access a pension with some very careful planning, but it will only be a part pension.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need to get the discounts.
That's right, yes. Yep. So the part pension is more workable for them than trying to get a full pension.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the actual place where they live is in one of the trusts, is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
not at this time.
Okay, but will be,
So
right?
it'll depend on the process and whether we put that house into the trust at the start or whether we do it in the future.
Yep, okay.
So that's up to them and how comfortable they feel and whether we can get a right to live in the property while it's held under the person's name.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose, I mean, this one sounds quite neat, and there's very little risk, I suppose, because there's not, from James and his wife's perspectives, but there's no one there really who's eligible to make a claim against their estate to stop them from doing what they want to do. So, sounds good.
So that's them. So in effect, we're setting up the two trusts now for the next generation to move in, and if they have children themselves, or have children, or just have children themselves, it's already in place.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
controlling it by doing wills in the correct manner.
Yeah, and because we always like land in a separate entity from where they're running their business because it protects, there's an asset protection element as well, so that's good too.
Yes, it's always the best to have the asset protection from that point of view. We prefer the structure of having the property trust where the property is held, and then a family trust or a company that runs the farming business itself.
Yep, yep. And you're happy for them to continue as a partnership?
In the short term, yes. Once James retires completely and takes on the pension and all that, then it's possible that it would be better to move into having the two businesses run separately as a trust for each of the businesses to follow through with the
other trust with the property. Yeah.
They'll have their own businesses set up then prior to them taking over.
Yeah, because we don't want Scott trading as a sole trader, do we?
No. Because then you got all the property trading as a sole trader, and then when he goes and the two children come home, they've then got to set up a business for themselves each. Whereas if we set it up now, it can be in place and just pass on without any worry of sale.
Yeah, yeah. And then from a nursing home perspective as well, I suppose this factors in as to whether James and his wife put the block with the house on into the trust or not, because I suppose they won't want that counted as an asset. Both with Centrelink at least it's exempt, but it wouldn't be exempt from counting as an asset for the nursing home, would it?
It wouldn't be exempt from the nursing home. So that's why we're looking at, if it doesn't go in at the beginning of this or early in the piece in this succession plan, then it will need to go in roughly when he retires or if there's a change in his health situation.
Yeah.
So they're the important things to remember, is to keep thinking ahead and plan for things that may go wrong.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
or such, but health is one thing. We can have it one day and not have it the next.
True. Brilliant. All right. There were some great case studies, nice and clear as well about how you've strategized and worked through it. Where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you? The website's great.
They find us we have our own website. It's called thefarmprotectors.com.au. There's plenty of information there. There's information about all the people that we have in our team, and also the people that we work with that we call our team but have their own things. Such as
team.
We're a team. It has to be a team effort. And as one of the things I explain to people sometimes, we've seen cases where the accountant has done the succession planning and done it really well, The financial planner has done his section and done it really well. And the lawyer has done his part and done it really well, or her part, or their part. But none of them spoke to each other, and it doesn't fit. And then it comes undone from that perspective, is that you've got three parts to the whole story, but they're not tied together. We saw one case where life insurance was owned by a company that had been closed. And the life insurance was held by someone when it should have been held by the company, and to pay out the debt. And the wife said, "No, well, this is my money. It was left to me. You can please yourself what you do with the farm." And it came undone because something that simple, where there was no communication between the three parties. And that's more the role that we play, is that we oversee each of the sections that need to be done.
Yeah, and you have the bigger picture in mind, which is the constant message that I hear from you is plan early and speak to everyone.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone communicate, and it needs to be communicated to everybody as to what's going on as well. There was another one, if I can throw a fourth one in. We did a 20-year succession plan for someone. They were in their mid to late 40s at the time. The son wants to come home, but the parents don't want to move off the farm. And the son has already bought land near them and is probably looking to buy more land. But we set it, and they've got 2 daughters as well. So we set it up so that the son buys out the blocks of land over a period of time, and they all work together. And if the parents pass away before the son can purchase the lot, then the specific blocks of land go to the girls, but they have to lease it to the son. And there's a document that states that. And he buys it off them as he can afford through this stepped process. And it was stepped so that he could buy one, pay it off, use that as collateral to buy the next one, pay that off, use those 2 as collateral to buy the next one, and so forth. So never put under a financial strain.
But the daughters still get their entitlement as well.
The daughters still got their entitlement at the same time.
Very well planned. So leases with options to buy.
Yes.
Yeah, good. There's so many tools that we can use to get things done, isn't there? And it's just thinking creatively. There
is, yeah. And sometimes it's just a matter of what I call thinking outside the box. And that's virtually what we do, is we sit down, we gather all the information, and then look at the options, and then put a strategy together that tries to keep everybody happy. And make sure that the next generation hasn't got the same hassles that this generation has, so that it flows through evenly all the way through.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, I'm sure that's been very useful for everyone who has tuned in. And they can reach out to you via your website, which is probably the best place to go. You're also on LinkedIn, I think, if people want to contact you personally through there, but those are probably the best 2 spots.
They are, yes. And all our contact information is on the website, and for each of the offices. We have 4 financial planners and 1 admin, so there's not just one of us doing this, there's a group of us. And we also work very closely with yourself, doing the legal side. So there's and they can even contact you to come through to us if needed.
Certainly. Yeah, for sure. Great. All right. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for giving us all your knowledge today. And I really hope that everyone has enjoyed that. Thank you.
My pleasure.